Man, let me go ahead and play the shit from here for y'all, man. And yeah, I'm gonna bring this back real quick.
Say this would be interesting
I can't
because you
wait. Institutions were that way because they followed that whole Sky Daddy thing. They
correct.
were like, oh, that Sky Daddy's going to smite us if we don't. And so what you do here is you're giving the classic progressive argument, which is, well, guys, it is true that it's a great institution, and it is true it's the best place in the world to have children for the continuation of the species. And also, it's fantastic for men's health. It's fantastic for their mental health. It's great for them in almost every way. But that divorce thing is real bad. And I counter. You're right. That divorce thing is real bad. We have now a center of agreement. But now we're going back to the marriage in the West thing, which is that whole great institution problem. Well, if we agree that what made it good, which you just did, is, hey, that Sky Daddy guy, and then I point out that right now you can still utilize that Sky Daddy guy for an ecclesiastical marriage outside of the state. Hang on. And the only thing you could do is say, what about common law? But you can't govern anybody from common law. And at least in the ecclesiastical institution, you have social pressures on women to stay married. You can't offer a man anything like that. Give me a single social pressure you can offer that would actually keep these marriages together. One.
So, all right. So, like I was saying before, this is not a masculine way to deal with how women have changed. Men have to deal with women changing in an aggressive, masculine way. Meaning, I don't mean forcing them, right? It means upping your game. Because again, let's say religion. Let's say that you were able to actually pull this off in mass, right? What that would do is make it to where the men don't have to up their game, and natural selection cannot really occur. You know what I'm saying? Or survival of the fittest can't really naturally occur. Where the best men, how can I say, where there's winners and losers, and the best man's genes will live on. Because in these situations, and the word that CGA used when he was talking about this whole thing was, as time went on during the conversation, when he kept talking about basically, if men become more Christian and more religious, somehow by default, the women will become more religious and more Christian. Because they totally is ignoring the fact that these women have free will. Everything you're talking about only works in a cult scenario where relationships are actually regulated, they're governed, they have to be approved, and so on and so forth, right? And the thing is, as men, that's not what we want. That's not what you want. You have a vast world of infinite possibilities. Even if you're 60 years old right now, you can still reinvent yourself because you have the information and the tools. Nothing's more powerful than information. You guys are able to see how big the world truly is. You guys are able to learn more than any other man. No, fuck that. Learn more useful things than any other man ever if you choose to go into that specific field. If you want to get into just learn how to fix cars, got your little hoopty and whatnot, you can go on YouTube and just make it a project just to fix your car. There are some people who get old cars, old hoopties, and they just make it a project to, all right, if something's wrong with the car, I'll just fix it. If it's something simple like brake pads, I'll just fix it. Matter of fact, that's one of my dreams is being able to do my own brake pads and rotors because I know it's possible. But anywho, so like CJ was saying, you're getting into the realm of it being a cult, and then from there, you get into this whole idea of virgins, and all right, well, when would the girl be a virgin? She would have to be younger and younger and younger, and that's how you wind up in these scenarios where, especially with the Mormons, right? In particular, it's a very common thing for these Mormons to have for these girls to get married off to these old men at the age of 12, 13, 14, 15. There's a documentary on Netflix called I think called Keep Sweet, and it's about this Mormon cult. And the head of the cult, he had a son as well, and the head of the cult, he had like 80 wives, and you have like just like these how can I say, these confessionals with the women who are actually in the marriage with him, and and them talking about them being this super young age, and this old man coming into the bed with you and this and that. And for modern men, we're way too far past anything like that, right? If you were in that situation, you would be uncomfortable yourself. Like if you were in a situation, right, where you somehow managed to get a marriage or a relationship where basically that's what that would look like the church. Because at one point in the conversation, Andrew Wilson says, yes, that there are pastors who can come into the house and basically pressure the women to have sex with the husband. This is 2025. You know how weird that shit would be, but to a certain degree, I had to think about that shit. I have a winning mindset. That would bother me. But I'm not thinking about all the low performing men out there that would be okay with that, because that is a freebie. You didn't have to compete for that. You didn't have to work. Because what's going to happen is, if men was to get that kind of work, they wouldn't improve. Another thing is, if you make men, or you have men looking forward to this kind of shit, or saying, all right, well, because again, someone like Andrew Wilson, he's known for arguing with these girls on it's whatever podcast, and I have no problem with the conversations that I've seen. But by the time I came across Andrew Wilson, I was kind of over the whole, let's get a panel of stupid young women who are not very intelligent, who are obviously trashy, who are obviously sex workers and stuff like that, obviously super liberal. Because it's really hard to have a conversation. You can't really have a logical conversation with a young liberal girl who can't really even take life seriously at that point. Like they may feel as though they're serious, but again, your maturity is limited at that age, whereas you're a grown ass man, with a salt and pepper beard. Of course, you should be able to best them intellectually, right? So that's kind of what we kind of know him for, and in this setting right here, everything's kind of just falling apart. It's just falling apart. At the end of the day, he creates like porn for loser men. And again, I had to go through my phase of wanting to hear this kind of shit, wanting to hear men like kind of stick it to or kind of rain down on some entitled women with a bunch of facts, because a lot of men grew up seeing this kind of shit to the point where we didn't know that you can speak up for yourself. We didn't know that you can actually say no to this whole deal. Not only that, you can actually start recognizing your relationships for what they are, which is a deal. You're making a deal with someone. Most men are in a deal and they don't negotiate nothing in the beginning. They have no negotiating skills, right? And for the most part, most of you have no negotiating skills because society, right? Feminine leadership always pressures men into not looking for any kind of benefit, and always looking at it as if, well, this is owed to her. Like, I owe her a happy life. I owe her a happy ending. We have to the point where we have no parameters and no standards for, okay, what is an actual healthy marriage? Because for the most part, we have gotten, whether you realize it or not, as a society, and we're coming out of this mindset now, we've gotten to where we think that a relationship can only exist and only be good if the woman is happy. And we don't acknowledge the fact that, women don't just go through one emotion, and you cannot make them stay in one emotion. Women change. When women are different people at different times, all right? Especially if, I keep telling y'all, we're dealing with the long-term effects, the long-term consequences of female leadership and feminism, which leads to generations of people who are raising other generations of people who are not getting any emotional regulation, and these are people who cannot self-correct and not solve their own problems efficiently. All right? Let's keep playing.
What? Just one.
Can I answer something
Yeah.
you just said? This would be interesting.
I can't wait.
You said,
but can you answer that question? Then
No,
answer.
before.
Oh,
the
of
1940s.
course. You gotta ask me a question.
Because
before you
listen,
answer
I'm
mine.
listening. I'm listening to you. You asked the question at the end. If you would have asked it at the beginning, possibly I might have been able to address it. But let me address this point.
Okay.
You said the 1940s and 1950s with this imaginary sky daddy controlling marriages. That sounds like enforcement. Because by the time the
Doesn't it?
1970s came around, the very first chance women got to file a no-fault divorce without need for evidence, without need to have a private investigator to prove an affair.
There's no fault in the 70s?
Yes, it was the 70s, started by Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
I'll educate you.
But hang on.
Came along. Hold on for a second. No.
Yeah.
I got the
Go
floor
ahead.
here. I got the floor. So you said the religious institutions governed it and made it great. The 1970s came along, and as soon as they did,
Feminism.
women started to file divorces at record rates, which is back to my conversation. Soon as you remove the authority of Sky Daddy, now you're back with the state. And now you have difficulty, and now the